This has kind of been one heck of a summer lull. For those who don't know, the summertime here in Canada is kind of the slowest time for Canadian politics, even taking into account the Christmas holidays and any and other holidays that happen over the year. The House Commons takes a break around June, I think, or maybe June or July, and they're out for 2.5, 3 months during the summer, and they resume at middle to end of September. And that's kind of the biggest gap where there's no House Commons, which means that all of the elected members of Parliament, instead of being housed in and around Ottawa, which is where they stay for the majority of the year, they go back home. So where's home? Well, I mean, if you have a Saskatchewan member of Parliament at the federal level, then they would go back to Saskatchewan or BC or different parts of Ontario or the East Coast, yada, yada. So it's kind of interesting because there's been so much breaking news. I mean, Trudeau's divorce was obviously nothing to do with kind of politics, but it was still really big news. And then you have the Liberal cabinet shuffle, which has been tremendously big and is working in favor for the Conservative Party of Canada. But not only them, it's working in favor for Canadians in general. And well, what's next? What's going to happen? Well, let's just take a brief little overview look at everything. They're down in the polls. There's a 99% likelihood that Justin Trudeau will not be reelected, that the Liberal government, as on their current trajectory, will not be reelected. In fact, it's actually swung the entire other way on the pendulum, where it's likely that the Conservative government in Canada will not only win, 99.9% likely that they'll win, but it's also about 80 to 85% likely that they will win a majority government, which is huge. It means that Liberals won't be able to block any of the bills or laws that the Conservative government is trying to do. And well, that's going to be great for the country because there's so much work that needs to be done to undo all of the harm that the Liberal government has done. Welcome back to another video, everybody. That was probably the longest intro I've ever done. I'd like to encourage you to give a like and subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps grow the channel. We're up against, big tech. We're up against the government, Bill C-11, Bill C-18, Justin Trudeau's, algorithm that, he's tried to poke his fingers into the system and manipulate things that benefit him because he also has a YouTube channel that he's trying to grow, which we don't know how long that's going to last, if it still is even going on. But nonetheless, I have hope over the countless years providing you with immediate breaking news and Canadian news that I've earned your subscription. Let this be the day that you actually subscribe if you haven't yet. All right, let's take a look. We got quite a few stories to get through today, so we're going to try and not stick on one story for too long. The first one is by the Politico here. Inside Canada's fight with Facebook. Justin Trudeau has said Canadians will not be bullied by billionaires in the U.S., which is kind of ironic because Trudeau is trying to bully Canadians. So we might not be bullied by big tech billionaires in the U.S., but we're being bullied by our own freaking prime minister. I mean, the rules that he's tried to impose on big tech is, well, only working for the propaganda type of media outlets that Trudeau has his fingers in. Canada's Liberal government picked a fight with two U.S. tech giants by passing legislation forcing Meta and Google to pay news publishers for content. But the battle hasn't gone quite as expected. And that's kind of really good news for Canadians. Now, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says big Silicon Valley firms want to make an example out of his country as Meta, fronted by two of Ottawa's brightest political minds, hailing from opposite parties, blocks Canadian news from its platforms. Now, the Conservative government of Canada has stood against this. They said, well, this is censorship at the highest level. You're trying to force that only select few media organizations in Canada that have the liberal accreditations or credits that they seem to change all the time just to work in favor of the propaganda machines that they can control, and the ones that get subsidized get paid by not only government subsidies, not only by taxpayers' money, but now exclusive deals with Meta and Google. And that's a no-no. It's a capitalist world. It's a free-for-all. Everyone has equal opportunity, not equal outcome. You're not getting exclusive deals because you're a government subsidized media outlet. You want to monetize, you go put ads, you sell merch, whatever it is. Who's ever walked around with a CTV hat or a CTV shirt aside from the employees? They can't push merch. They're not trustable. no one has really any faith in the mainstream media anymore. So it's no wonder that Trudeau wants to push them more and more because, well, they have television outlets. They've got, a lot of subscribers, overall on social media, but their videos get ratioed to hell and it's just not going the way he wants. So the fact that Meta stood up to the government of Canada is really, really good. It shows that they still have integrity and that they're not going to allow, countries to turn into China or North Korea, allegedly, right? Like, that type of censorship stuff where the government has a say in free speech. So good on them for standing up. And now we're going to kind of shift over to this other story here. This is by the National Bank. Obviously, they're still rocking the Pride logo and stuff. What taxes are payable at death in Canada? So this is kind of it's not like breaking news, but it's kind of new to me because I didn't know that if, let's say, your parent, right, owns a house or your spouse owns a house and either it's a primary residence or it's their rental suite or whatever it is, right? When they die, if they don't do the proper paperwork before they die and you inherit that property, it's massively, massively taxed. Like 30% of the value that you would sell it at for the profits of when it was bought, like so the capital gains, that's incredibly taxable, which means that Canada taxes you on the way into the world and on the way out. And that's kind of why I wanted to take a look at this story just briefly, because it's really unfortunate. So deemed disposition. When a person dies, the income tax Act will act as if some of their assets were sold at market value. Of course, it's not a real sale. The Canadian Revenue Agency calls this a deemed disposition. It applies to most property. The proceeds of a deemed disposition are used to calculate the capital gain. This is the difference between the original purchase price and the market value at the time of death. It's the profits on the sale of the property. Half of this profit or capital gain is taxable, which means that if you know somebody that could inherit a house, or you yourself can inherit a house or property, you have to go into what's called a trust, and it's quite a bit of paperwork. It's maybe a little bit of hoopla to get through, but it basically protects yourself from the government from taxes. We know our government mismanages all the time, and that's the issue with the Liberal government, is they want to get more and more money from Canadians through tax and all this stuff and donations or whatever it is, and they mismanage it. They send it to other countries. They don't put it into our own economy the way that any really smart person, you don't have to be smart to have some sort of common sense to realize that, hey, we should probably work on our stuff here before we work on stuff to help others elsewhere. Where do you learn that? Well, you learn that when you take an airplane. You put your oxygen mask on before you help literally anybody else. So why aren't we doing that with our economy? Why aren't we doing that with our money? Well, that's the whole issue with the Liberals. So I wanted to put that out there. If you know someone who could inherit, or you yourself could inherit, look into trusts and stuff like that, because that's the only way to protect your money. We kind of want to give the government less income. We want to provide them less taxes as much as possible. Okay, this next one here is going to probably trigger some people. They're trying to change the lyrics of O Canada. Now, there was a singer who's on screen right now, and the news anchor is going to talk about this person in a second, that changed the lyrics, and it really surprised Canadians. I think this was maybe a couple of years ago. Well, now they're actually trying to change it with the law. So instead of our home and native land, they're trying to legally change the Canadian anthem to our home on native land. And they've changed it from, you people or whatever it is, men and women, we don't know. Now they're just making it non-binary and inclusive for their ideologies. But let's take a look at this story here.
You may remember back in February when Canadian singer Julie Black struck a chord by changing a single word in the national anthem. And now there's a push to make that change stick. Here's CTV's Adrian Gobriel.
First penned as a poem in 1908.
Oh, Canada.
Some are now calling for change.
Who am I as a Canadian?
On Wednesday, Mississauga City Council will vote on supporting a motion to alter the lyrics of O Canada. If passed, the country's 7th largest city will write a letter to Ottawa to request a permanent change.
So this is yet another just small change that would go a long way in the reconciliation process.
The discussion was ignited by Canadian soul singer Julie Black, who altered the century-old verse, "Our home and native land."
Our home on a native land.
Performing at an NBA All-Star game in front of an international audience.
A lot went through my mind before those 2 minutes that changed my life.
In large part because of the reaction Black received.
It was positive for a good amount of time.
There were also many Canadians who spoke out on social media, upset about Black's decision.
I experienced hatred.
You filed police reports.
Based on what various hate groups were saying to me. If we hear you utter that ever again, watch out.
Right. So I obviously don't agree with the threats that this person received, but if this were to ever happen in America, I don't know, just hypothesize and say Donald Trump is at a rally and he's singing the anthem and he changes the lyrics to something that has, been similarly changed here in Canada. What do you think the reaction would be? How do you think the media would run with it? How do you think the people would act? You don't have a right to change a national anthem based on how you feel that day or your own perception of it. It's a national anthem. It's quite literally set in stone. Laws and regulations protect it. It's like altering a Canadian flag. It's illegal to do so. You are not allowed to take a flag, a country's flag, and manipulate it in a certain way, like an actual flag. A logo digitally, yeah, of course, why not? But an actual flag, you can't alter it. And so it's very, very strange that, the media has been very progressive and allowed this to happen, encouraged this to happen, and is actually actively pushing for this to happen, which is kind of where I want to just take a brief pause and ask, how does this make you feel? How do you feel about, the anthem being changed right in front of our faces because of one person? One person took it upon themselves to, I don't even call them a her because that would be assuming gender. One person took it upon themselves to change the lyrics based off of how they potentially the person felt in that given moment, and now it's changing the course of Canadian history. Personally, I think it's kind of sabotage-esque. I don't like it, and I think that there should be a lot of pushback as much as possible, especially socially, to reverse this decision and not allow the lyrics of the Canadian anthem to be changed because one person decided, let's just change it. Let's just see what happens and change it. Anyways, love to know what you guys think down below in the comments for that. Giving away free money because of who you know and, politics is wrong. You want money, you earn it. And if you want even more money, you have to be able to prove that you can earn it or that you deserve to get those extra bonuses. You want to have, way more, provide way more. And I think that Pierre Poilievre's approach to that is fantastic. Right now, the government subsidizes so much stuff that underproduces. And I think that this kind of more realistic and objective approach is going to be fantastic for Canadians, fantastic for the growth of our economy, and it's what's actually going to counterbalance all of the immigration. A lot of people have an issue with mass immigration right now. I think targeted immigration is good. I think growing our country is a very good thing. We need to be able to fill certain jobs. I don't agree with allowing, millions and millions of people in per year because you think it looks good on paper. I think you have to have a very realistic approach. And the first thing that we need to focus on, more importantly, is housing. You need a home for people to live in. And you can't rely on, billeting and the generosity of Canadians to say, I see that there's an immigration problem. I have a spare bedroom. Let me bring in strangers to live here rent-free because the government says to do so, which, yes, is an actual thing that the government on the East Coast has encouraged people to do so. That's where we're going to end today's video. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns about any of the topics that I've covered, I'd love to hear about them down below in the comments. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to give a big like and subscribe if you haven't already. And be sure to hit the post notification button so you can add a layer of insurance to make sure that you get notified of upcoming videos. And I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.